The Penguins had a disappointing weekend, only picking up 1 out of a possible 4 points, and Pat and I are going to recap both games against the Devils and the Kings right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Dam. You can follow him on all social media platforms at Cinnamon Verwet. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And you can follow the show's Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And Pat, the Penguins lose both games of the weekend back-to-back against the Devils and the Kings. And my biggest takeaway is honestly, I felt like they deserve better than 1 out of 4 points. Let's start with this game in Newark against the Devils, where I thought that was the Penguins' best 60-minute performance in a couple weeks. They didn't take any periods off. Yeah, Chris Letang, his brain just completely farted on the play that he gave the puck away. His controller disconnected. I have no idea what he was trying to do there at the end of the first period. But in terms of being hemmed in their own zone, I hardly saw that against the Devils. The Penguins were carrying play throughout the 60 minutes, throughout the overtime. They deserved a better result. But sometimes, Matt, the other goalie makes saves, and Jake Allen was tremendous. He made a lot of very great 10-bell saves against the Penguins, and that was, to me, the biggest difference. Outside, of course, Arturs Silovs continuing to not know what the heck he is doing in shootouts. This is very weird at this point. It feels like he is just guessing on all of these shootout attempts. I kind of compare it to what you see during soccer when a game goes to penalty kicks after extra time, where usually at the goalkeeper, you have to guess where the ball is going because it's so close. You usually don't have to do that here in hockey in a shootout. You have to rely on your positioning. And Silovs is just flat out guessing on all of these attempts. It's gotten to the point where I think they need to bring in a different goalie once it gets to a shootout, even though he's playing so well during regulation and overtime. And speaking of that, made arguably the save of the year on Jack Hughes. That was unbelievable during the game, but still, just his struggles in shootouts continue to leave me dumbfounded. At the end of the day, though, I loved the effort against the Devils. They should have won that game. Just unfortunate that they couldn't get that extra point because they deserve more than one goal, in my opinion.
It's a total hat tip to Allen because he played his ass off for the Devils. He stole an extra point for them. As for Silovs, at this point, it has to be a confidence issue because it's just snowballing on him. It seems like with each passing goal in a shootout, he is really second guessing himself, and he's just rattled in shootouts at this point. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe Muse and company can do a little bit more focus on shootouts after practice and just get him as many reps as possible. But we also know that'll happen, and then they won't go to another shootout for the rest of the year. So, but yeah, I agree with everything else, though. I thought this was arguably the Penguins' best game to date against the Devils. And you could see in the way the team talked after the game, this team is starting to believe in itself. This team is starting to think they might be better than everybody expected. Now, they obviously had that internal confidence just simply because of who their leadership is. Those guys are not going to go into a season and decide, actually, we stink and nobody cares and this season's a wash. We're just going to go through the motions. They're always going to believe that they're good. But you go up against a really talented, really fast Devils team, and for all intents and purposes, for the majority of the game, including overtime, they were the better team. They outskated them. They outchanced them. They played really well defensively with the exception of Letang's brain fart. It was a really solid effort against I would say when healthy, bona fide cup contender in New Jersey. And they gave them all they could handle. And Jake Allen just decided to have himself an afternoon. And it comes down to the shootout, and we know what Silovs is like in those now. So no moral victories, but I will say this. The Penguins still have given themselves early on enough of a cushion that they've got a little bit of breathing room. Now, it's not going to last forever. They've got to get back on track here, but they gave themselves the room to have a night like this where an opposing goalie steals the game or they just have an off night. So it sucks because they certainly deserve that extra point, but them's the breaks in the NHL.
Right. And, they were 8-2-2 after October. They're now 1-3-1 since that. They lost 4 of 5. So they're lucky that they have created at least a little bit of a cushion. But as you said, it's not going to last forever. So now that the schedule is easing up, and I wrote about this for the Hockey News today, why I think this 5-day break just comes at such a perfect time because they can get their legs back. The coaching staff can work on some of the things in their own zone. Yeah, I thought they were great against the Devils, but overall, they're towards the bottom of the league in expected goals against, high danger chances against, and scoring chances against at 5-on-5. So this gives the coaches a break where they can tweak some things in their own zone. The players can rest, get some of their legs back. And also, Pat, we can get closer to get some of these injured players back because this team is still very banged up right now. So I actually like that this break is coming at a really nice time. They only play 2 games in the next 12 days. So they are going to be well rested. They played 5 games in the first 9 days of this month. It's been a lot of hockey to start the month of November. So they're going to get a little bit of a breather now. The schedule eases up. You play a Nashville Predators team. We'll get to that later on the show. That has just not been good to start the year. You have Seattle after that. And yeah, they've had a fine start, but I still don't think they're that good. Minnesota is still figuring it out, and I don't really think they're that good so far either. You play Buffalo a bit later too. We all know they're not that good. So, Pat, they had a really tough schedule to start the month of November, but now it's easing up, and you got to start banking points and get more of that cushion back because, as you said, it's not going to last forever. You did mention something else when you were talking, and it was that confidence in the players, and that can't be more evident than what Erik Karlsson said to Josh Yowie. And I'm sure if you guys read that quote, you saw him take a shot at a certain someone. And Karlsson said, you know what's expected of you. You do the things that you're good at and not the things that someone tells you to do that you can't do. He also did say we're finally starting to feel good as a team and the rules are starting to slot in. So I think we all know who that is a shot at. It's pretty clear at this point that, at least to me, that he didn't see eye to eye with the former head coach of this team. But, I loved that quote that Karlsson gave the Athletics' Josh Yowie. And, they're starting to really think that this could be something this year. But I go back to the overall game against the Devils. I loved their work in their own zone, at least for that game. They gave up no high danger chances at 5-on-5. They got plenty great scoring chances of their own. Finishing wasn't there for a game, and they stink in shootouts. They've lost 11 of 12 shootouts. Jake Allen was great. Sometimes that happens in the National Hockey League, friends.
That last part is key because I think we, for whatever reason, the past few years talked ourselves into, oh, the chances are there. The chances are there. They're just not going in. And then you go back and watch the film and the chances are kind of there. Like they're getting shots on net, they're getting looks, but they're not all that high quality. You look at the way they played against the Devils, they got plenty of quality looks and quality chances. Allen just played outside of his mind for that game. And you saw it on multiple occasions, including poor Ville Koivunen, who at this point, brother, take out a loan somewhere and buy yourself a goal because he is everywhere and the puck just doesn't go in, whether it's an unrealistic save, a post, a block, whatever. He's doing all the right things, but he can't buy one. So you look at that game against the Devils, and it was a lot of quality looks. This is the kind of process and effort that you can go, listen, 9 times out of 10, we get 3 or 4 goals there and we win that game. This was just unfortunately the one where the other goalie has himself a night. And then the last thing, and I'll touch more on this when we get to our final segment about the week ahead, but to the point of this Sweden trip coming at the best time, not only is it good for this team to get some rest and really recharge after a really compact start to the month, they're starting to feel themselves. They're starting to get a little bit confident. And now what do? They get an international field trip to go all hang out together for a few days. And I know it's intangible. I know it's a little bit cliche, but you spend a lot of time on the road with your teammates. You're playing well to start the year. You're starting to feel yourselves. That's a positive. That's going to really help bring the team together.
Yeah, you build more of that bond, if we're being honest. And just a couple more things from this game against the Devils. The top line with Kendall on it was sensational. Almost 70% of the shot attempts when that line was on the ice, 66% of the scoring chances. They were absolutely kicking all the butt out there. Ben Kendall, again, had a great game. Pat, I know he didn't score in that one, but he was great on the top line. I loved how good the top line looked there. And got to shout out the fourth line as well. 75% of the shot attempts when Heinen, Lizotte, and Dewar were on the ice. Also, 79% of the expected goals and 85% of the scoring chances. I love the way that fourth line is going right now, especially Connor Dewar. He continues to be fantastic in a fourth line role for this team. So just a couple more shout outs I wanted to get in before we end this first segment. And speaking of that, that will do it for this recap of the Devils game. Coming up in the second segment, Pat and I are going to discuss Sergei Murashov's debut and how the Penguins simply ran out of gas against the Kings in the third period. They had absolutely nothing left after their first solid 40 minutes, and Pat and I are going to discuss that right after this. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our first sponsor, and that is Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other websites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. I have been in that spot where you need the right hire like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-hosts, Pat Stamp. And Pat, I love the effort for the first 40 minutes against the Kings. They were badly outskating LA in the first period. Tommy Novak gets the goal off of a great feed from Evgeny Malkin. Of course, LA bounces back with a bit of a lucky goal. Anze Kopitar's shot goes right off Parker Wotherspoon in the net. Not really much Sergei Murashov can do there. We'll get to his full debut in a second, but the power play stays hot. Anthony Mantha gets his 8th goal of the year. What a pickup he has been, by the way, from Kyle Dubas. And I love the passing, the between the legs pass, the feed right back to him. Just gorgeous stuff all around. The power play continues to be amazing, especially with the puck movement. And then you get to the third period, Pat, and it felt like it was only a matter of time. Right after that Brian Rust chance didn't go in, and by the way, that was a great save by Darcy Kemper off a really nice feed from Sid. That was the most I had noticed Sid all game. Very quiet game from him, by the way. But after that chance didn't go in, it would have made it 3-1. The wheels fell off, and they got boat raced the rest of that period. They had absolutely nothing, not good enough on a third period. And I know it's the second half of a back-to-back, your third game in 4 nights, but it was very clear to me they had nothing left in the third period, and they were honestly just kind of waiting for the final whistle to blow, because even during the 6-on-5, they were missing easy tape-to-tape passes, weren't getting any good quality looks to the net on Darcy Kemper, just nothing going in the third period.
That's the thing, is I don't want to crucify them for that third period, because I look at it as it wasn't bad play. It was sloppy play, but you could just kind of see that they were gassed.
Tang's play on the pinch that led to the tying goal, that was sloppy. That can't happen.
But the rest of it, that was just a team that was playing its third game in 4 nights. And let's not discount everything that we said in the first segment about the New Jersey game. They played their asses off in an emotional, hard-fought 65-minute game, and then to turn around and play an LA team that is pretty good. They were very solid for 2 periods, and the Tanks just had nothing left. And I don't want to belabor this point too much, but as much as we don't like shootouts, Silovs not getting them an extra point against New Jersey kind of loomed pretty large on Sunday, because instead of taking 2 of 4 or 3 of 4 out of the weekend, you only end up with 1 of 4. And again, they still have a bit of a cushion because of how well they've started, but it would have been nice to get at least 1 out of LA. But at the end of the day, they had played so much and so well over the past few days that come Sunday afternoon, they were just completely gassed and had nothing left in the tank. And you can kind of see that when you dive into the metrics. You look at the shot attempts at 5-on-5 in that game. They go from having 56% in the first, 46 in the second, and then 43 in the third. And then you look at the high danger chances at 5-on-5. They out high danger chance LA 5-3 in the first, 2-0 in the second, and then they fall down 7-5 in the third. So it just tells the tale that I don't think that they played poorly, so to speak, in the third. They were just a team with nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, they were giving up too many quality chances in their own zone. They were having trouble going from defense to offense in their own zone. It just felt like they were skating in mud for a lot of that period. Let's get to Sergei Murashov, though, Pat, making his NHL debut in this game. I actually thought he was totally fine. The first goal that he allows, I guess in a way, if you want to say he could have made that save, that's fine. But it was also mainly a bad bounce, so I'm not really going to crucify him too much. The second goal, that's a blistering shot from Corey Perry, who continues to age like fine wine, by the way. He's off to a great start this year. And then the third goal, I kind of don't want to see him go down there. I want to see him stay upright, just because I feel like he gave Kevin Fiala too much of the net to shoot out. I understood what he was trying to do, but I feel like in that situation, Pat, just stay upright and try to make the save that way. But again, maybe I'm being a little too nitpicky for someone in his first NHL start. He did make an amazing save shorthanded in this game, which was fantastic. You got to see his agility in full display there, going from left to right in the crease. Really nice save there. And I thought he was making some really nice, timely saves throughout. Again, maybe I'm being a little too nitpicky with the third goal, but I still thought for his first game, totally solid debut overall.
I liked how he played. And I'll say for the third goal, that is very much a, hey, let's also remember this is another NHL team on the other side of the ice. And Kevin Fiala is one hell of a player. And he deserves the credit for that, because I thought Murashov played it very well. Fiala just had the patience of a saint on that one and outweighted Murashov. Because if you go back and watch the footage of that goal, Murashov has him. And then as soon as he doesn't, Fiala pulls the trigger and scores. So it's just a case of, hey, that guy's pretty damn good. So not a whole lot you can do. The only nitpick that I have, and it's not so much a nitpick of him as it is a nitpick of where he is from, you can see that he very much is a Russian goaltender in the sense that he loves to push the puck back into play. There were a handful of moments in that game where he would either catch it with his glove, drop it to his stick and play it, or he'd go down, slow the puck down and push it back into play. And it didn't burn him on Sunday, but you watch that and you go, buddy, you can maybe get away with that in the KHL, the ECHL, or the AHL, but in the NHL, that might come back to haunt you. And that's very much a trait of Russian goaltenders, is they are taught to keep the play moving. Don't cover the puck unless you absolutely have to. And you could see it in a few instances. But other than that, the agility was fantastic. And his best trait is that he is not only positionally sound, he is not afraid to lean on his athleticism when things break down, and that helps him make desperation saves. So for his NHL debut, thought he was really good. One unlucky goal, one goal that Kevin Fiala scores because he's great, and then the Corey Perry one, defense in front of him has to be better, but unbelievable shot by Perry.
Yeah, and honestly, that third goal came right after the refs missed a blatant trip on that Evgeny Malkin sequence, Pat. I even tweeted, I think Furman South just wanted to turn this into a playoff officiating contest, because don't really know how you're not calling that penalty. And then literally right after that, the Kings score. So just a weird sequence there from the officials in this game. But yeah, I thought he was also super calm and composed, and I think he has earned another start in Sweden against the Predators. I think Dan Muse should go back to Silovs for the first game, and then I think he should go to Murashov for the second game before they come back to Pittsburgh next week. At least that's how I see it. But
I also will say this: I got to give Muse credit for the way he planned out and executed this goalie rotation in this moment with Murashov coming up, because we saw that, and we have said it now, that the team ran out of gas on Sunday afternoon. But I do think that given how hard they fought and how hard they played both in New Jersey and then to start the game against LA, you could kind of see he understood, okay, if I go to Silovs twice and then I give Murashov that start at home against LA, that'll give this team a little bit of a boost, because you could see they wanted to play well in front of Murashov for his NHL debut. And eventually, obviously, we know the gas tank ran on empty, but that is a nice little strategic move by Muse to say, hey, that Sunday game is going to be tough. That is going to be our 3rd and 4. It's going to be the second half of a back-to-back with travel. If I can put this kid in the net and give this team a tiny bit of a boost, it might help us out. And for 2 periods, it certainly did.
Yeah, and I always felt like it made the most sense. Yeah, I know 30 game in 4 nights, second half of a back-to-back, but you also have the home crowd behind a rookie like this. Just made all the sense in the world to me. Couple more things before we get to the final segment. Thought Erik Karlsson's third period was especially poor. That's the worst I think he's played all season. He's been great all year so far, but just the puck was bouncing off his stick. He wasn't making the right reads. I felt like, and he's going to be totally fine, people, but just didn't really like his play in the third. And, going off that, I felt like Dan Muse should have used his timeout late in the third when they had the goalie pulled, Pat. I know maybe I'm being a little nitpicky with that, even though we've talked a lot about how they were gassed, but still, they were pretty tired. So give them a little bit more extra rest so they can maybe go out there and try to steal a point against the Kings. I think he should have called timeout there somewhere in the final 2 minutes. I don't know what Dan Muse was waiting for there, but hey, I think
part of that was that it was a calculated risk that I don't totally agree with, because that your top guys were pretty tired, but also the guys on the Kings had also been out there for a minute and a half plus.
Doughty and Anderson, I think, were out there for a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So I get it from that perspective.
So
but
I think he was kind of hoping that the late push extra man would have given them a boost. But at the same time, I think at that point, call your timeout, get those top guys a rest, and hope that having the extra skater can give you the advantage you need. But I understand, but also don't agree with the decision to not call timeout.
Right. I know that Doughty had been out there for a while, so had Anderson, but I still, in that situation, call timeout and give your big guns a rest so they can at least, give a little bit more to try and steal a point from the Kings in this one. But I think that's going to do it for this second segment. Coming up to end the show, Pat and I are going to look at the week ahead and a fun international trip to Sweden to play one of the worst teams in the NHL to start the season. Pat and I are going to discuss that right after this. But before we get to that, we have to tell you all about our final sponsor, which is FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. That's my co-host, Pat Stamp. And Pat, 2 games coming up this week. First one, Friday. Remember, people, different start times because of the time difference. 2 p.m. Eastern time in the afternoon. So if you are working, load it up on your computer. If you somehow have a TV at work, if you work at home, put it on your TV while working. And then Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, you can watch that before the Pittsburgh Steelers hopefully bounce back from a really ugly loss on Sunday against the Chargers. That was not very good. So different start times, but it's going to make for hopefully some good performances for the Penguins. They will take on a Nashville Predators team, and we're going to preview them and go more in depth later in the week, Pat. But who they stink to start this season. 5-8-4. They have lost 12 of their first 17 games. They're 7th in the Central Division. They cannot score to save their lives this year. If you look at their goals for per game, they rank 30th in the league per ESPN, 2.53. Only the Rangers and the Flames are worse than them in goals for per game. They have just had a really rough time scoring this year. Philip Forsberg, he leads the team 7 goals, 13 points in 17 games. Ryan O'Reilly. And for those that did not see the Ryan O'Reilly quote from a few days ago where he said he's only had one good year in the league, I think he's just trying to put the brunt of the blame for the season on him, but he did not mince words after another loss. This is a really big opportunity, I'll say that, for the Penguins to really beat up on a struggling team in Sweden. Predators obviously aren't going to make it easy on them, but compared to the teams that the Penguins have been facing, Pat, this is a fairly big chance to bank some points in the standings against a team that, as of right now, they are not going to be a playoff team. They're actually on track to be a lottery team.
They really are. I mean, they have the second worst goal differential in the NHL at -15. They can't score. They can't stop. And it just, the vibes are rotten around the Predators, which is crazy to say because at the start of last season, we looked at a lot of the moves that they made and said, this is going to be a really good team. This is going to be a team to be reckoned with. And it has been anything but for them. They hoped Steven Stamkos would be a revelation for them. He has been, I would say, pedestrian at best for them. And while they have good goaltending, at this point, it doesn't have the support to really carry them where they need to go. And I continue to say it. If you're 31 other NHL general managers, call Barry Trotz every single morning. Call him every morning. Pour yourself a cup of coffee, and that first dial is to Barry Trotz, because Hall of Fame coach, one of the best of all time, does not look like a very good general manager. But I digress. Hunter, we talked about this over the weekend, though. I didn't know this until I did a little bit of research.
Yep.
This is not the first time that the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators have played regular season hockey overseas. And we don't have to do any acting or put up any airs here because we were texting about it. But for those who may not know, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators have played 2 international games against one another that were regular season games. And of all places, they were in Japan in the year 2000 on October 6th, 2000 and October 7th, 2000. Both games were 3-1 finals. The Preds won the first game 3-1, and then the Penguins won the second game 3-1 with Marty Straka getting the game-winning goal for the Penguins. So this is kind of cool that this is the first time since the year 2000 that the Penguins and Preds are playing an international game, and it is also the first time since the 2009 season that the Penguins are going overseas when they played the Ottawa Senators or 2008, excuse me. It was the 08-09 season. They played the Senators in the Premier Series. They lost 3-1 to the Senators with Danny Heatley getting that goal in Stockholm. So they're going back to Sweden for this. So this is exciting. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm excited for that early afternoon Friday hockey and then early morning breakfast hockey on a Sunday. This is going to be a ton of fun.
I'll just set my alarm for Sunday morning. You know me, Pat. I like getting up late.
You're a night owl.
Weekends, but yeah, I might have to set my alarm for about 8:45 on Sunday morning, maybe even 8:30. I might give myself a little bit of a cushion so I can, get a cup of coffee, have some breakfast. I'm not going to wake up at, straight at 9. I got to wake up at least a little earlier. I'm going to do what I did for the Steelers game earlier this year when they played the Vikings overseas. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited, man. I'm excited for Erik Karlsson, especially he gets to play in front of his family and friends. It does suck, Pat, that we won't get to see Hollander and Raquel play. I know they had been really looking forward to this but I am at least excited for Erik Karlsson especially. But unless you have anything else to add, I think that's going to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to add that I kind of hinted at in the last segment was I think this trip comes at a really good time for the Penguins. Again, not just because they're getting some rest after a really condensed start to the month, but this is a team that is building confidence and building chemistry, as we have seen both through the way they've talked to the media about the way this season is going, but also I think this is depending upon what we find out over the next couple of hours, because they are scheduled to leave tomorrow to go to Sweden on Tuesday. So if they hold on to Harrison Brunick, who we haven't seen in quite a few games, as well as continuing to have Ben Kindle on the roster and a couple of these other younger players, it's a good chance for them to really ingrain themselves into this organization and into this team. And if you have that, you have a fun international trip with your teammates. You do a lot of the team bonding stuff where you go sightseeing and have all kinds of fun in another country. Erik Karlsson gets to be your tour guide, as well as Ricard Raquel, who I imagine will make the trip. And these guys get to show you around. You get to have a little bit of fun. And then you go play hockey against a very beatable Nashville Predators team. You come out of this with 3 or 4 points and you have a fun trip, you play some good hockey, you can come back to North America, and with some more winnable games right ahead of you after it, this could be a really good chance for the Penguins to solidify themselves as a potential playoff team going into 2026.
Right. The schedule really it's going to ease up now. You played a lot of top teams to start the month of November. Now you're facing some teams that are kind of middling to flat out bad. We touched on Nashville a little bit. We're going to preview them a little bit more in depth later this week. Seattle, I still am not really buying into too much. Minnesota has struggled. You got Buffalo, etc. So the schedule is going to get more favorable. But again, the Penguins have to bank these points and have to start getting on a little bit more of a winning streak. Pat, I will fact check you a little bit. Today is their travel day. They're traveling to Sweden today, and then they will practice tomorrow in Sweden.
That's what I screwed up, that they practice tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm also basing it off of what I read on Sunday, and today being Monday. Sorry, I am scatterbrained for a Monday morning.
Pat's having a case of the Mondays. That's also because I have the practice schedule put up on my phone. So there we go. And then they are off Wednesday, practice Thursday, play Friday, practice Saturday, play Sunday, and then they travel back Monday, and then they start practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, and then yada, yada, yada. But that is the full schedule. They're flying to Sweden probably right now, if we're being honest. But yeah, I agree with you, man. This comes at a really nice time. You get to recharge, get your legs back, have that team bonding, all that good stuff. And then you can try to beat up on a really struggling Predators team. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back with a new episode for you guys on Tuesday, hopefully with a special guest. We're still trying to plan that out. And then we'll have another episode on Wednesday for Warrior Helmet. Thursday, we're going to preview the game with potentially someone from Locked On Predators. And then Friday, we are recapping the first game right around 4:30 p.m., 5 o'clock, right after that game ends. We are going to recap that game and then get you guys set for Sunday's game as well. So that's going to be the schedule you guys are going to get for this week. So again, that'll do it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and Pat and I will talk to you again on Tuesday.